Hello everyone, my name is Alexandra, also known as Chaos Child, and today I am going to teach you one technique to make clouds. Just for starters, let everybody know I am using Adobe Photoshop, part of the Cloud Pack. This would be the 2014 version. I am using a tablet pen. My canvas is 5 inches by 10 inches, and it's at 900 dpi. I highly recommend going no lower than 300 dpi while you're coloring because it'll give you a lot more space to do more detail in. And if you have it too low, it's going to make it a lot harder to get the details that you want. Now for starters, I have a lot of my menus dropped down over here. I recommend that. It makes it easier to switch between the things you need. I'm going to go over to this side menu and I am going to make a new layer, which you can also do, as you can see here, by putting Shift, Control, and N. The reason I'm going to make a new layer is so that if I mess something up, I don't affect the layers below it. I'm going to go over here to my brush, and I'm going to select from the basic brushes, so you don't need anything fancy. I'm going to select one of the air brushes. I have my brush set to normal. I'm going to turn its opacity down to 30%. And now I'm going to change its size. As you can see, it's big, it's 300 pixels, but it's not as big as we want it. There we go, 900 pixels in this setting seems about right. So you want to have your brush kind of big. And if you go over here to the top of this menu, you'll see this little shape that lets you change the width and the angle of your brush. We're going to want it to remain flat, and we're going to make it kind of an oval shape. By the way, if you can't find this, I know some versions of Photoshop do not have this sitting on top. You can get it over here from your brush preset. Let me see, brush, here we go. The brush menu, and you can get it underneath the brush tip shape. It will let you do that here too, and it will show you a little preview of what it looks like. To our layers. Okay. But yes, anyway, between 30% and 50% is usually about what you want when you're layering, which is what we're going to do. I find that layering works the best because you can bring out a lot of subtle shapes, which makes things look more realistic. And to start, we are just going to put down the general shape of our cloud. Keep in mind that a cloud doesn't really have any kind of set shape, so it really doesn't matter what you make it look like. As a matter of fact, you could even have it look like something specific. We do see shapes in clouds all the time. So it's not that far-fetched. Alright, now that we have our general shape, I'm going to decide, for the sake of argument, that the sun is going to be somewhere over here. And just real quick, I'm going to put down a little bit of color to define where our brightness is going to be. And this faded color in the back, the first layer we put down, is going to be our darkest dark. So we're going to be doing nothing but layering brightness from here on in. The best way to go about this, by the way, is to use little flicks of your brush, like a curly cue almost. Alright, I'm going to reduce the size of my brush down to about 700, because this is a smaller brush. And I'm going to go over some of the shape we've done before. You don't have to stick strictly to the shape that you made, because clouds do have little wisps. After all, they are just little poofy bits of vapor that float up in the sky until they rain. If you want to be specific about the sort of cloud, since clouds do change depending on the weather, then I would recommend going to Google or another search engine and looking up images of specific types of clouds if you want to be super accurate about it. But a general rule of thumb is that there's not really anything crazy accurate. But yes, as I continue on, you'll notice that I'm not going as far in as I would before. This helps bring out shape and brightness. If we go too far in, then we start knocking off some of our shadows, and we don't want to do that. So we'll just go over these edges. And now we're going to go up to my brushes. We're going to reduce the pixels down again to about, let's see, about 600. There we go. And we're going to continue on in this fashion, just layering a little bit at a time. You can go in and nip little shapes in places you didn't have them before if you want. Again, clouds aren't really a set design. They're just blown by the wind. And don't worry if this takes you a really long time to do. There's really no set time for this other than the time you want to invest in it. And inversely, don't feel bad if it doesn't take you any time at all to get the cloud that you want. You may be satisfied before you've even finished the steps that I'm taking. All that matters is when you are pleased with your cloud. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to reduce this down again to 500. As you can see, it's getting brighter, so I'm not having to spend as much time as I was before. Let's see. And now we're going to go back and reduce it again. I'm going to drop it down a bit more. I'm going to drop it down to 300. Don't be scared to drop around. You can make it bigger and go back and cover an area again if you decide you don't like something that you've done. You can also undo. I do recommend changing in your presets to have the history set to about 1,000 save states so that you don't accidentally reach a point where you can't go back and undo something you've done. Again, don't be afraid to go outside of your design. It will allow a kind of windswept look to your cloud if you do that. Let's see, and we're going to drop it down one final time to 100. And we're going to go a little bit along the edges. You can also experiment with this, and I do recommend experimenting with everything from color to brush types. You can try using this technique for a number of things, not just clouds. I always encourage people to play around because you never know what might happen. For this final space, we are going to take it from 30% up to 100, and we're going to keep our brush at 100 pixels. And we're going to just gently along some of the edges. I do recommend doing this with a tablet pen. You can do this with a brush, but a mouse. But a mouse is a lot harder, and you won't be able to get any dynamic out of it. As you can see, I'll do it up here. If I press down lightly and then harder, there's a definite difference between them. Your mouse will only do this. So give you some little flicks to bring out the brightest patches of sunlight. They're touching the very edges of some parts of our cloud. A little bit more prominent up to the top since we decided that over here where my squiggles are is where the sun is. And that's just about it. You can go and set your brush to a much larger size if you want to, and go back over it with something like linear light. Again, if you're going to use things like linear light, vivid light, overlay, I do recommend starting at 30% and then working your way up until you get the brush that you want. But if we take this and we just go slightly over the top and bring out some brightness and some fuzziness, and that will wrap us up. And if we move it to our print size, we will see that we have a nice and well-defined, semi-realistic cloud. Again, don't be afraid to play around with things. You can set your brush to any of these patterns. I'd say to test them out and try what you can do. You can play with any number of colors, you can play with any number of layer styles. Always experiment, never stop trying, because you will always find something that you didn't see before. But yes, I hope that you guys had a good time. I hope that this was informative, and I hope that I'll see you next time. Goodbye! Like what you see? Then please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you!